Hey guys, we're back again this week with another destroyer kit. This time we're going to be looking at Flyhawk's very small USS Ward kit in 1/700th scale. Let's open her on up and take a look. Now, this particular boxing is the limited edition, which includes a number of added extras, which we'll get into in a minute. Now, one thing you'll notice right away as I get this out is this is mainly to protect these very small, very tiny parts. And why this kit is advertised as a full hull kit, you do have the option with this part to do it as a waterline kit. But if you'll see from here, the main underhull, which one thing I did notice right away is it does have a very nasty little pore stub here on the other side that will take a little bit of doing to clean up. It's actually very bad. But beyond this, and before I forget, they actually have some very smart engineering here in the waterline section with having all of this structure parts pre-molded in. This, I think, is very smart, especially for this small scale. Now, as I was saying, in terms of fit between the two, it's damn near perfect. There's a little bit of play, but yeah, very good job here. Now, another thing you'll also notice, as this is 1/700th scale, literally half the scale size as the Laffy we looked at previously, you can really tell just how much of a difference in terms of size 350 is versus 700, and why it may not visually seem as big a difference when you think about it. Yeah, this is literally half the size of that other destroyer. So continuing on, this sprue gives us most of our masts and our main deck. Would have been nice had they molded in a little more of the surface texture for the deck, but I'm not going to go too far out in the weeds on that, given that it is 700 scale. So, continuing, as I said, mast. Now, on mine, this particular mast came slightly damaged with this little fin here being slightly bent. I fixed it for the review, but that is something rare of. It's quite easy to be damaged. Also included in the sprue are most of our life rafts, our torpedo options, the main 5-inch guns, some of the superstructure detail, and a few other odd and in parts. Moving on, we've got some life rafts and our two main props and their accompanying shafts. Again, hopefully this will show up on camera, but this is where I do find a major fault. The pore stubs on these props are very thick, especially for this scale. Maybe it'll show up better this side, but getting those out will be very difficult. I'd almost say your best option would be to cut the rings first, giving you more room to work, and then detach them from the main pore stub. So that is something to be very aware of. That will cause you a lot of problems. Moving on, and I do apologize for not having some of these parts out to begin with. This is mostly just to keep them all together so you don't lose them. Moving on, we now get into some of the superstructure parts. And hopefully this stuff will show up on camera, as they're very, very small and just by themselves are very nicely detailed. Now, this is the problem with some of these smaller kits, is getting stuff to show up on camera, and hopefully this is focusing. One of these days I will get a monitor. More superstructure. Again, just out of the box, the detailing is very nice. And I would say even without some of the extras that this kit comes with, as we move on to the smokestacks, even without those extras, it's now I would say is more than adequate just as is. So even if you don't get the limited edition, which comes with the extras which we're about to look at, I'd say it's definitely worth consideration. Oops. These down. Now, as I said, this particular version comes with a nice set of extras. Now, while it doesn't come with a deck, it does come with a swath of extra parts. Some of these are almost impossible to see, such as these little guys here. Hopefully those are going to show up on camera. Some additional those. We also get one set of resin torpedo launchers, which unfortunately I feel like isn't as good. Oh, that's not the torpedoes. Oh no, here we go. More additional gun parts. Some very tiny 5-inch barrels, which hopefully again will show up on camera and focus. Here we go. Here's the torpedoes. Which overall, I'm not quite impressed with the casting on these. I don't know, just something about it, to my eye at least, just doesn't seem as well. Okay. We also obviously now have our decal sheets. We're just going to look at stuff as we go for this. Let's get that upside down. Overall, decals aren't bad. Obviously, with a smaller scale, any imperfection is going to be a lot less visible. So, something to be aware of. But overall, they'll work. And then lastly, once we get into it, we get into some photo etch sprues that come with it, including some of the decking detail and railings and other additions on that one. And a lot more here, including some ladders. And interesting enough, they do give you a little photo etch stand, which obviously for something this small should be more than adequate to hold the kit up. Now, excuse me while I get all this back in. We'll close out with final thoughts. Almost did stand, forgot to get into the instruction sheet. My apologies on that. So anyway, construction begins with building up some of the smaller sub-assemblies for the photo etch, which, now granted, is both a good and bad thing. I would honestly say you might want to save doing this until you're getting ready to attach some of the parts, just so that you don't lose them. Beyond that, obviously starts by assembling up the main hull components and then adding on to surface detailing, some of the guns, smokestacks, for continuing on and building out detail after detail after detail. Do like they give you some of the above views and side views to help locate items, but overall, there's some areas where it could be a little more clear on what you need to do, but overall, it's still a very complicated kit, and you will be working with a lot of small parts. Paint guide is given Mr. Keller and Tamiya. So I just dropped it. There was a paint correction for the deck color. Do apologize, it just ran off as we were working here. But overall, pretty straightforward paint scheme. Tricolor, red, black, and gray. So overall, there shouldn't be any real issues once you get the painting. It's just getting through the main assembly phase. That'll take a little bit of doing. So, overall, this This kit is an interesting one. You know, it's got a lot of detail packed into a very, very small package. Is it a easy build? I would say no. I mean, with all these small, very tiny, very delicate components, it's going to be very easy for stuff to potentially get lost, damaged, and or done incorrectly. So this is one definitely to look at only if you're, prepared for. I would say, unless you've, had some experience with smaller scale naval subject matter, I would say skip it. Now, would I say, is it worth it potentially to get this particular version with the added extras? I would say maybe. It's unfortunately, because it is a smaller scale, the amount of return you'd get from these added details is kind of lost in the smaller scale. But if you obviously want to build potentially the best with the most detail, even if it is less visible, then definitely this version is worth consideration. But in a broader sense, it is an interesting subject matter in that this was the story that actually fired the first U.S. shots of World War II. So, if for nothing but that, I'd say it's definitely worth a consideration and a potential pickup. So that was a look at Flyhawk's 1/700 scale USS Ward. Interesting little kit, a lot of detail in a very small package. So until next time.